Yeah.
Aloha, I'm Asia Iyer with Maui Pono Network, and we are glad to have you joining us for another Maui Pono Network 2026 election cycle interview. And we're very privileged tonight to have former council member Kelly King. She is running for the South Maui seat this year. And we're excited to continue with our long interview format with Kelly. Thank you for being here tonight. We also have Lucianne Dene and Rita Ryan, who are community activists, and you've probably seen them on some of our other interviews as well. And uh, we are what the interview format will be is I'll ask a question, Lucianne will ask a question, and then Rita will ask a question, then we'll go around. These interviews usually last just under an hour, and we will provide a short synopsis on the website. If that's where you're watching it, you can scroll to the parts that you're interested in. We just really encourage people to listen to as much of the interviews as you can. And make sure you listen to the other candidate interviews and share with your friends and family so that they can also become informed Maui voters during this election cycle. Very important. It has a lot to do with what happens in our daily lives, and we all need to give more attention to it. I know I'm preaching to the choir because you're already here, but thank you for being here. And Kelly, I'm going to start off the questions. And you've been away from the council for a few years. Can you just give us a little insight into what you've been doing and what you've been involved with in the last few years?
Okay, well, thank you. First of all, thank you to, it's great to be here with the ladies of the Pono Network. You all look lovely. And I've been trying to not be too involved, but I do get a lot of calls still and for follow-ups on the things that were ongoing when I left the council that have kind of stopped. And, one of them is the wetlands issues and the flooding. And I've met with folks in the community about that. I've also met with folks in Ma'alaya about the wastewater treatment plant that's supposed to be going in there because that got stalled. So I've been trying to help uninstall some things and put meetings together as I can from my vantage point outside of the council. In my personal life, our farming, we continue to increase biodiesel sales, renewable energy, and it's of course now that biodiesel is cheaper than petroleum, it's really starting to increase. And along with that comes our ag. So we've been working on some really exciting things in the private ag sector. One of those is growing rice in the state of Hawaii because Hawaii eats 130 million pounds of rice every year, and nobody's growing it here commercially. So we're working with Tokyo University to get the good rice to come to Hawaii to grow in Hawaii. And we're also working with DBED and with the farmers and the landowners on Kauai, where there's a lot of water, and we don't have to fight for local control of water yet. So been very busy in my private life as well. You may have heard that my daughter has some medical challenges right now. So that just started a couple months ago, but we're handling that well. And there's some, despite what people think, there is some good medical care in our state, and we have some very good doctors in this state. So we have every confidence that we're going to overcome this challenge. So it's been a very busy year. This year and the last 4 years has been busy because, if you really care about this community, you can't stay out of issues like water and land and, potential climate disasters and things like that. So I've continued to work peripherally with ICLEI, which is the national international climate organization that I joined when I was on the council. And so working with them and supporting them from outside of my council seat as well. But there's no end to the issues, as you know, that need to be addressed. And my big belief right now is that we have an opportunity and an obligation to fix what we can in our county and strengthen our county and to shore us up against some of the things that are happening at the state and federal level.
Thank you. Thank you for that great answer. Lucianne, would you like to go ahead with your question?
I would. Thank you for being here, Kelly. And my question is going to segue right on your last words. So you're known as kind of a get done sort of person at your whole career here, really. What do you think the county council, with its, limited powers, can do to help residents cope with Hawaii's overall high cost of living?
Oh, that's a great question. And that is one of the top priorities right now. Affordable housing, of course. and I'll continue to work on that. I started working on that in my first month on the council back in 2017, and was able to get quite a lot of affordable housing projects into, especially into South Maui District, started, and several of them finished before I left the council. So I'm very proud of that record. I do want to work on trying to figure out how to make Bill 9, now that it's passed the county, workable, and work with the all parties involved, because I think not all parties were involved in that when it first reared its head. So we need to bring people together. We also need to make some really strong choices on focusing on affordable housing and our resources on affordable housing over luxury housing and over vacation housing. And that means infrastructure, and that especially means water. So I would like to see if we can prioritize these things and lower the cost of water for the average person, that will lower overall costs. Water is much too expensive on Maui, and it's not fairly charged. The rates are very different, even from one farmer to the next. And I know that personally because it happened to us. We were charged, when we first got into farming, we were charged 20 cents more per 1,000 gallons than our neighbor farmer. And we're on the same system, and we're actually we have the same landlord. So the private water system that we were getting water from was very uneven, and we found out there was nothing legally that we could do about that. So bringing the water under the county control can stabilize water prices, can help folks get housing built and not have to compete with luxury housing and whatever vacation hotels and things, whatever water's being used there. As well as focusing on, I would like to really focus on pushing more local produce into our food system, because I think it's now getting cheaper to buy locally, especially with the high cost of petroleum and shipping.
Mm.
So this is another area where people have a problem with. There's not much I can do about healthcare, but I am willing to get into that muck and check on it, because the businesses, our business and the businesses I've talked to recently, our insurance costs are doubling for our employees. So not only do we have to pay twice as much for our employees, but they have to pay twice as much for their care, because they're not doubling in their coverage. The actual amount they have to pay is going up as well. So I want to check into that and see what could be done on a county level to maybe help supplement folks that are having a really hard time, because we cannot let people be dying or going through unnecessary hardship and illnesses because of what's happening with our insurance rates. And
Thank
same thing
you.
for business. Business needs some help. We've helped agriculture quite a bit. We've done these micro grants, and we need to take a look at helping our local small businesses also.
Thank you very much. I'm going to pass you on to Rita.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Um, your campaign emphasizes transparency and also restoring trust and accountability. What specific county council practices would you change so residents can see who is influencing major land use and budget decisions?
Well, thank you for that question. And the first thing I would do is go back to how the council operated when we had a majority of what most people call progressives. I call them people-powered candidates, because we were actually listening for 4 years. We were actually listening to the people. And I saw decisions being changed based on the fact that 90% of the people came out and testified one way, and we would vote that way. What I've been seeing recently is 95% of the people come out and testify one way, and the council still votes the other way. And so we want to give that power back to the people. And I think we can do it by changing the majority bent of the council. And I think that's going to happen. I really have a lot of faith that that's going to happen after this election. But we do need people to come out and vote. For transparency, I would like to have, one of the worst things about this county is that if the administration or a department under the administration doesn't follow the law or breaks the law, I mean, there's a lot of, I consider everything in the budget document part of our county code, because it gets written into the county code, it gets voted on by the council. And so if there's something that's in that document that doesn't get done, and sometimes it's deliberate, like, the last term I was in, I pushed for the parking lot for the houseless folks that are sleeping in their cars. They need a legal place to sleep overnight so that they can get a good night's sleep, because a lot of them have jobs, and the next day they need to get up and go to jobs, and a lot of them have kids and they need to get up and go to work the next day, but they keep getting moved down the road because it's illegal to park on a county road. So I got that into the budget, and yet it never happened. So we need oversight. We need to start accountability for the things that aren't happening correctly, and the things that maybe are deliberately not happening, that are deliberate breaches in the law, like the fact that we have these contracts that the police department has been signing without authority, without being approved by the council. And one of them that we recently went through was that task force with the DOJ. So, and I was one of the ones that testified and worked with some of the protesters against that, because we don't want our police to be run by Trump's DOJ. So it's really important to start bringing these things to light on the council floor, and having discussions, and maybe calling the departments before us to answer why things are happening that aren't supposed to happen, or why things aren't happening that are supposed to happen. Because the only recourse the average person has is to sue the county. And that's just not right. Most people don't have the money or the time. So there's got to be some oversight besides putting people in a situation where either they have to sue the county or they have to go to an organization that, deals with these kinds of lawsuits. And I've always felt that that was one of the most unfair things about this county, is that you can't get your problem, 80% of the time it's hard to get your problem taken care of unless you sue. So
Right.
to me, that would bring greater transparency if the council starts taking greater interest in some of the things that aren't happening that should be happening.
Mhm.
Um, Brown House in Lahaina comes to mind, and we were supposed to have an investigation into that, and that never happened.
Right.
So I feel like there's a lot of things that we could have been doing that I'm now more focused on doing, and that we need to understand what our powers are as a council, that we actually do have the authority for investigations and for inquiries, and we need to take that power back.
Wonderful. Thank you for your answer. I'm going to pass the questioning back to Asia.
Thanks, Rita. Kelly, you're a business owner of a well-known business here in the state, and I've heard you say that you consider yourself pro-local business. What, as a council member, do you think could be done, or what could the council be doing more for local businesses?
Well, we have in the need for when recognizing the need for agriculture, local agriculture, we put $2.5 million into micro grants for local farmers. We should be doing something similar for local businesses, and especially looking at additional assistance for the local businesses that now have to rebuild after the Lahaina fire, or that have had some flood damage. We know that money is not coming as quickly, and maybe not as much as it should from FEMA these days. So we're at risk there. So we really have to look at what local businesses are integral to our county, and especially the ones that provide food and fuel and our essentials, water to the people, all the essentials that we cannot live without. We have to shore up those businesses. It's not right that people are, I've talked to a lot of businesses that are kind of on the edge of, whether we can survive here. Of course, one of the things I've just committed to is I'm going to look into what's happening with our insurance rates, because that's hurting local business, is these jumps in insurance rates. I mean, ours doubled, and we talked to another business and we said, we're now at 13 or $1,400 a month. So that was a doubling over what it was per employee. And they said, wow, that's what you're at. We're at 2,700. So some businesses are hurting even worse than we are. So we have to look at all these local services and try to figure out where we can better use our monies. And it shouldn't be, there's money in the budget that I feel that shouldn't be spent on certain things. And one of them is that mass surveillance project, which I really do not like at all. And, spending a couple million on that when it could be spent on putting out grants for local business, or helping people with their flooding and fire issues, their post-flood and post-fire issues. I would really like to I hate to sound like Doge, but I think we need to get into the budget and look at what wasted money is there that really needs to go to essentials and to helping people in their day-to-day lives, and to equalize out the help we've given to agriculture.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. Go ahead, Lucian.
Well, I'm going to go back to one of your favorite topics, which is wetlands. I know that you've spent some time looking into the community plan for South Maui, and that you did testify in support of having certain areas set aside as green space so that they can function during floods as wetlands. If you were elected to the council, and the community plan did not include all those areas, is there steps you think that the council could take to, um, you know, give us a better green infrastructure in South Maui and West Maui and other places that flood?
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the things that needs to happen before we pass the community plan or before it even comes back to the council is because the wetlands are such an integral part of South Maui infrastructure, is we need to go back to that wetland overlay and put it back the way it was originally when I left the council, because they've taken a lot of wetland out of it. The point of that wetland overlay was to look at where all the wetlands are, even if they've been built on. And it wasn't an effort to remove buildings or take people's houses down. It was an effort to see where all the water used to go when it flooded, and to look at the areas that haven't been built upon yet for possible purchase from the county. Or maybe I talked to a couple of landowners who were even willing to donate land that was wetland land before I left the council. So going back to that original plan and getting that reinstated and accepted. It's been sitting, I think, for council approval since I left the council, which was over 4 years ago. So that needs to be reinstated correctly so that we know where all the wetlands were supposed to be, and people will know, if they're built on a wetland, that's where the flooding's coming from. But there's a lot of pieces like that that need to be relooked at and we need to revisit. And I'm going to push for this if the county tries to pass the community plan before this election. But I want to push for bringing CPAC back to the conversation, because when I was first elected council member
Could you let
back.
people know what CPAC means?
Oh, CPAC is the Community Plan Advisory Committee. So that's the committee that's appointed from that area to create the community plan, to listen to all the public input, to look at the proposed plans and to make changes according to what people need and what the community needs. And so where we're at right now is we had a community plan that was passed by the CPAC, by the people, all made up of people of South Maui, and that has been changed by the Planning Commission. And that was and the Planning Commission, when they were looking at it, half of the meetings that they had no South Maui member on that Planning Commission. So we didn't have good representation. They took a lot of the requirements for infrastructure and wetlands out of the plan and changed the word may and must to should and could or may. And so they took a lot of the teeth out of the most important part of that community plan, which is infrastructure. So that's what I think we can go back and look at that. When I was first elected to the council, I was made planning committee chair, and the first assignment I had was to pass the Molokai community plan. So when that got heated, and there were discussions about why it's where it's at and why things got changed, I actually went to Molokai, called up, and I think I was able to reach 2/3 of the CPAC that originally put the plan forward, and was able to bring some of them to the discussion to say, these things should not have been changed. These policies were put in there, and here's why. And I think we ended up with a much better plan because of it. And we also made a statement. We changed the statement that was in the community plan from this plan is not regulatory, it's just meant to be a guideline. There was a statement like that, and we took it out and we said this plan is regulatory. because it's accepted by the county council, it's voted on, and it becomes part of the law. It's not just a guideline. It's what we want to see in our community. So I'm hopeful that we can have that discussion before it passes at the county level. I've been really heartened by folks, by organizations who have given their input, like Sierra Club and like Maui Tomorrow, who have really followed some of the details and helped advise community plan or our community members on what's going to happen if it passes this way. So I think we largely understand in South Maui that there's a lot of harm that could be done with this current version of the community plan. And I will, elected or not, I will be testifying heavily and trying to work with whoever's chairing the committee that's overseeing the community plan.
Thank you. I'm going to pass you on to Rita.
Thank you. Yes. So can you share with the voters your position on short-term rentals in South Maui and how you plan to balance long-term housing, visitor industry jobs, and county tax revenues? How do you see that all working together?
Okay, well, I do think it needs to work together. And one of the groups that has been left out of the discussion has been the group of owners of the short-term rentals and the people who work in short-term rental businesses. And I've been talking to a lot of them, and I'm sure everybody's been hearing from the folks like that who want to be part of the discussion. I would like to create a community plan adjunct if it's just for South Maui, but I'm willing to work on West Maui as well. But I think we need to have the discussions of which it's and some of this is going to be hard to do because the council has already passed Bill 9, but they've also passed this rezoning bill that almost makes Bill 9 moot because they're changing all that zoning back to hotel anyway. So I'm not really sure what's going on in the council members' heads. If you're going to pass Bill 9, let's have a discussion about Bill 9, and let's have a discussion about which condos need to be possibly purchased by the county and repaired. There's a lot of these are really old buildings. There's a lot of really old condominiums in the Minatoya zone that's being talked about that require millions of dollars of repair. And if we are going to say that there are going to be affordable housing, somebody's got to pay for that repair besides residents. So that's got to be a discussion that the county has to have and where that money's coming from. I had a committee meeting when I was still chairing the care committee where we had a presentation by a local plumber who had been paid to do assessments of a lot of these condos along the shore. And the condition of them it was frightening to hear the condition of the sewage infrastructure. And he said, some of them, you might as well just be dumping raw sewage into the ocean because the pipes are so rusted through and so old. There's some of them some of the condos have been working on it. Like I think Maui Sunset is one of them that has been diligent about trying to make repairs, and some of them are not. So that needs to be assessed officially by the county, the number of repairs and the dollar amounts, as well as what's happening with our insurance. Coming back to insurance, the insurance rates have been reaching levels of $1,000 a month per unit just for the insurance. So it's not as simple as saying we're going to use these for affordable housing. They probably will not be affordable, but some of them are not. It's not fair to put local families into these buildings that have major repairs, and those are going to be levied as taxes on the individual unit holders. So I want to make a big push to continue building affordable housing like I was doing. And a lot of it's affordable rentals because we were able to house folks that are in the 60% area medium income, AMI, and lower in the first two projects that were actually built and moved into before I left office in the 6 years that I was there. And these were apartment buildings that were starting at $511 for a two-bedroom apartment. So when you have people who are not going to be able to afford to buy affordable housing, they're looking for affordable rentals. Right. That's largely what's been coming in. The projects that I worked on when I was in the county, one of them started opening up phases, the one that used to be downtown Kihei, the one on Liloa Street. has already started opening some of those units, but that was a project that was meant to be more commercial, strip malls. There was going to have a movie theater. They came to see me in 2019 when I was chair, and I said, "No, we don't need any more strip malls. We don't need any more movie theaters. If you doubt me, go down to Kukui Mall Theater and sit through a movie with the other 5 people that are in the theater." I mean, people just don't go to movies these days, right? They watch everything on Netflix or live streaming on their computers. And so they asked me what they should do, and I said, build affordable housing. And they looked at me and they said, you would support that? And I said, of course I would. That's exactly what we need. We don't need more strip malls in Kihei. So that's one of the reasons why that project was built as affordable housing. Although part of my caveat was do not go down into the wetlands. You got to build, you got to keep the project above the wetlands. So we need to keep doing that, and I don't want this Bill 9 to get in the way of the projects that we've started. The senior housing that was designed, I've been advising everybody who wants to build anything in South Maui to go to the Kihei Community Association Urban Design Review Committee, and make sure you get the community on your side, because you will shave 5 to 10 years off the time production time if you're working with the community and not against it. And I can give you an example of why the S670 the community's always been against that. It's been over 30 years, I think. Lucian knows more exactly than I do, and they still haven't broken ground. And yet, Doug Bigley with Kaiko Ohana was able to build Kaiwahine Village in 2 years, because in every new permit they needed or every hearing they had, KCA was out there, Kihei Community Association, with their T-shirts saying, "We want affordable housing." And so that got done in record time. He did another one off of Lapoa in record time. He did 2 projects in Lahaina. And this is what we need to do. We don't want the promises that were made for Bill 9 to stop that kind of construction, because we really need to be building these units. And they're built for families. They're built with playgrounds on property, and barbecue areas, and community kitchen and office space for when they wanted to bring medical people in and do vaccinations and things like that. So I want to keep working together with all of these things and making sure that they all fit into the larger plan, but not prioritizing the affordable definitely over the luxury or vacation homes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for that very complete answer. And I'm going to move on to Asia now.
I usually save these questions for the end, but I realize it doesn't leave much time there, and your answers have been very detailed, and I really appreciate the thought that you put into them. So I'm going to ask a little more introspective one, which is, what did you feel like you had as strengths when you were a council member? What were your strengths? What were your talents in there? How were your talents best utilized? And then what would you like to improve if you're given the opportunity to be a council member again?
Well, I think that one of my strengths is I'm pretty hard-headed, and I don't let myself be pushed around by corporation counsel or people who think they have authority over the council, because my first allegiance is to the people of Maui. And so that's always in the back of my head is what is the best decision I can make for Maui Nui and to improve all of our lives. I'm pretty well versed in the county-wide policy plan. That has all of our shared values and our vision, our county vision. It was worked on by thousands of people, years ago, and it's still extremely relevant today. So kind of using that as my Bible, I think, has been a strength, and looking at where do these decisions I'm making fit in with the goals that were set and that are still great goals in that community plan. I mean, the community plan has not been changed except for once, the change that I made, which was to add a chapter on climate action into it, because it didn't address climate change. No one was talking about climate change back when they were working on that plan. So I think the ability to envision our future is a strength, and the fact that I look into the future regardless of my term in office. Like I'm not looking for, I don't make my decisions based on getting reelected because that's not the most important thing to me. Most important thing is community service, and I'm very strong in that. I think probably the my background in journalism has given me one of the most important talents or skills you could have as a council member, and that is knowing the questions to ask. You know, that's the first thing you're taught in journalism is to ask the right questions of who, what, when, why, where, and how, and to keep those questions and those answers at the top of the conversation so that you can really inform people before they lose interest. I mean, that's what you learn in journalism is you put all that information in the first two paragraphs because some people won't make it to the third paragraph. But certainly being able to ask the right questions and assimilate the information. Probably another strength that I haven't seen widely on the council is the ability to hire qualified people. Because when I first got on the council, I went to the Office of Council Services and asked for job descriptions. I just assumed they would have job descriptions for council staff members. And they basically laughed at me and they go, "What? You just hire who you want and tell them to do what you want them to do." So I wrote my own job descriptions for the job for the professional people I wanted to bring into my office, and I actually interviewed people. I didn't hire my kids or my cousins or my, relatives or friends. I hired people who actually had qualified backgrounds and had the skills to back me up and to get the things done. And I think we got a lot done. And my my staff just worked really well together too, and they continue to meet every couple of months for lunch because they also really like each other. But those business skills, you don't see those all the time, and those are really important because you need to have people who are communication experts. And when I hired Axel Beers, look, he was so good. Now he's bought the Maui News. I hired excellent research and not just a research person, but someone who quickly researches. That was Michelle Del Rosario, and also understands real estate and knows how to get the information for the projects that we were reviewing, distill it down. But it made my job easier, and we got so much done. And every time we passed a bill, whether it was a wetlands bill or the outdoor lighting bill or the banning the chemical sunscreens and things like that, we always reached out and worked with, like DLNR was a huge advocate for many of our bills. For the wetlands bill, they were the ones that stepped forward and said, if you can buy Alaya Malco, when I was working on that project to keep the development from happening where the fires were starting in Ma'alaya, we will work with you and we will actually do the management and put in a reforest it. That's what they wanted to do. So the ability to collaborate, I think, is probably the most important ability because we need to be working with our state government, our federal government. We need to be working with other branches of government at the county level. And I do remember one of the first luncheons I went to, Kapuna luncheons I went to as a council member, sitting at a table with one of the House representatives from Maui and having a conversation about what we could do together. And he was so excited. He goes, "We've never worked with council members before. This is so exciting." And it was exciting. And there were members of our council, I won't name who it was, but would say things like, "We don't need them. We don't need the state. We don't need the feds." And my answer was, yes, we do. We need them and they need us, and we should all be working together because we all should have the same goal of making people's lives better. So that's kind of a long answer, but it's kind of a conglomeration of all these skills I've developed from my background in journalism, from my experience in business, from my experiences in working with on the boards of many of these nonprofits and being able to bring very different personalities together to agree on a common goal. That's a major issue whenever you're running anything, even a campaign.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, Lucienne, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'm going to jump right in on one of those topics where we do need to work together. As you probably read in the paper and seen discussed, the administration is moving forward to acquire a number of private water systems on Maui, in West Maui, two systems in West Maui, Also, they're asking the state to allow them to get involved with the East Maui waters that go to upcountry, and I believe they're even looking at Navaeha system. So, have you tracked this kind of shift? Is this a fundamental shift from the old plantation days to kind of a unified utility for the county? Um, do you see it as something that you support? Are there due diligences that need to be performed? If you were a council person, what would you be looking for as these kinds of acquisitions are being reviewed for council approval?
Okay, great question. And of course, I wholeheartedly support county control over our water. And I don't think that private entities should be running our water delivery systems because, we always talk about how water is a public resource, and yet we let these private entities tell us what our rate's going to be and how much water we can get. By the way, one of the things that happens with Wailuku Water is they've made some early deal years ago with the golf course up there. So the golf course continues to get free water and they get their water first. And sometimes there's not enough water for all the farming going on after the golf course gets its water. So those are real issues that wouldn't happen if we had a county control board. So yes, I was very supportive of the water authority. I was one of the council members who voted to put it on the ballot. As I testified at the DLNR hearing last Friday, which was on whether to put out a 30-year lease contract for East Maui Water, that I testified against that. And also that I have complete faith in our ability as a county to run our water systems. The Water Authority Board couldn't have a better chair than Jonathan Scheuer. And having Gina Young in as the executive director gives me great faith as well. And I stand ready to do whatever is necessary to make sure that the council comes together behind that effort. And we do need to do due diligence. And I don't know if you remember, Lucian, but we've done that. We tried to do that in the past when we made a proposal to buy Wailuku Water, back in, I think it was my first or second term on the council. And we were told by the executive director of Wailuku Water that that information does not exist. When we asked for information on maintenance costs and ongoing operational costs and what was in the coffers as far as parts on the shelf and things like that, are what you do when you're running a business like that. We were told that information was not available. And when I asked specifically, isn't it written down? Don't you have an operational plan? The answer was no, it's all up here. We literally saw him go like this and say, it's all up here. So, I mean, nobody would buy a business, and certainly the county should not be buying a business without getting that kind of due diligence. So if it leaves us with no other option, I would totally support eminent domain because there's nothing that's of greater public interest than our water systems. And if we can't get good service because they won't repair it fully after the previous storms, and if we can't get the information on what it costs to operate and maintain the system, also information on where there may be leaks that need to be fixed that haven't been fixed for a long time, then it follows that the next step would be eminent domain. So I would fully support that effort, whatever it takes us to do. But I also want to let folks know that I've talked to several businesses about this, and most people who are savvy business people don't want to see the county trying to run anything except everybody's in agreement that the county should have control over the water system.
Mahalo. All right, passing you over to Rita for the next question.
Oh, you're on mute, Rita.
Thank you, thank you. So let's go back to Kihei. Kihei, now the people of Kihei, the voters, residents of Kihei need reliable water, wastewater, roads, evacuation planning. Which one of these would be your top budget priority in the first year, and how would you suggest I think you may have answered that already about looking, not doging it, but looking for money that is not being spent perhaps intentionally or appropriately, let's put it that way. So how would you, out of, water, wastewater, roads, and evacuation planning, how would you prioritize those and pay for them?
Well, we're on good track with wastewater. We had although we need to move up funding for the I think it's the tertiary treatment that we were trying to get for our Kihei wastewater. That was passed and it was put into the budget, but it's a 4-year project. So the bulk of the money doesn't get spent for 4 years. So we need to move that up. We probably need to form and I suggested this to the CPAC when I testified on the community plan, is we need to put something in there, a firm policy that we have an ongoing working group with Kula folks, because when we flood, it comes from up there. And I've since talked to a couple of people up there who are starting to put in their own reservoirs and sequester water up there. And we just need to we need to have a coordinated effort. So I think I think there's good people up there that we can work with. But the one thing that really needs to be a priority is having a way out of Kihei that's we're not, so that we're not blocked with just the one way. And there's some ideas on how to utilize that road that comes from Ulupalakua. I mean, that's actually been offered to us in the past when we had climate disasters by Oprah Winfrey, who I think has some rite of passage on that road. And the mayor at the time would not let us use it. And some people wanted to go up that way to get their their kids were up in Kula and they were down here and they had no way to get there. And we weren't allowed to use. So maybe we need to improve that road, or I think it's owned by the ranch actually, but the right of passage, the right of way belongs to Oprah Winfrey, and she was completely open to giving it to the county, letting the county use it. So we need to work with her and the ranch and see what improvements need to be made, but we cannot have a situation where we get trapped in
Right.
Kihei by
Yeah,
the
I
fire or
understand
flood.
that's a four-wheel drive
And
only
Lahaina needs to do,
road. Yeah, it would need
yeah, and
improvement.
Lahaina needs to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Very good. Thank you so much. Back to Asia.
Kelly, you have a lot going on in your business and personal life, and you and I have talked actually about this personally one to one. But it's being a council member is a lot of work, and it's often thankless work. So, what motivates you to do the hard work of running for this seat again? Like, really, what is getting you out there, pounding the streets?
People say it's a thankless job, and I can't even tell you how many times I've been thanked. So I don't see it as a thankless job. Um, but um, but I grew up the oldest daughter of 5 kids. I have 3 younger sisters, and my whole life, and most of my years of being an older sister until I moved out of the house at 17 was taking care of my siblings and making sure their needs were met first. So I think that's kind of ingrained into me, is taking care of people who are less fortunate or people who don't have the skills or abilities yet to manage all their problems. And so it's an instinctual thing for me to help other people, and especially disadvantaged people. So I think that's kind of something that's just built into me. um, I really believe after, with all the stuff I have going on in my business life and my personal life, I believe in that old adage that if you want something done, ask a busy person, because we know how to budget our time and we know how to get things done. We have to, otherwise we can't survive with all these things going on. I had a lot going on when I ran for council the first time. And I have to tell you that the one good thing to come out of COVID was our ability to do these Zoom meetings. How we developed this into our vernacular now, and so it saves so much time. It saves a lot of pollution in the air because we're not burning gas, and it saves. It's a very efficient way, but it also saves the county, I think, money. I think if we estimated how much money we saved by having everybody do Zoom meetings in the departments, in the council meetings and stuff, you'd see that economically it benefits us too. So I see this as an ongoing tool that helps me out. I did have to tell my office at one point, okay, 5 meetings a day is my maximum for Zoom meetings because they tend to back them up next to each other. And I said, I need some time to prepare for meetings in between, and I prefer to have four or less. Because if you're doing a physical meeting, they won't put more than maybe three. You have to drive somewhere and you have to meet, and then it takes you a while to say goodbye, and then you drive home or you drive back to your office. And with Zoom meetings, they would just tend to just go, oh yeah, she has an hour slot here, and just fill every time slot. So I had to explain, I like to be prepared for meetings, and I like to have something. I like to, if someone wants to talk about their issue, I want to be able to research solutions and things like that before I meet with them. So I do think it's hard for a lot of people to assimilate a lot of things like this. It's become kind of my life, but it's also part of my obligation, how what I feel is an obligation to the community. And I'd probably be doing this whatever community I lived in, I was in. But of course, we've been on Maui close to 50 years now, and so I've seen a lot of changes. I know who the good people are on the island, and three of them are right here talking to me right now. The people who, I mean, I look at someone like Lucienne and I go, how do you keep doing it? Because she's been probably an active member of the community longer than I have. And so I draw a lot of inspiration from the people on Maui who you need to have other people step up and take your place and work as hard as you do. You can't be, at some point we're all going to I'm getting older. And so, one of the things I did that I think is a visionary thing that's going to help us for the future, and I want to resurrect it, is when I started the youth council, where we were bringing youth up into leadership positions. That was meant to be an annual thing. It was dropped as soon as I left the council, but I want to bring that back, and I really want to make it an institution because we need to. I mean, if somebody came up to me right now and said, I want to run in your place next in 2 years, and they were active and they got stuff done, I would step back and I go, okay, how can I help you? Because this is not about me. I don't see any of this stuff being about me or my title. It's about getting stuff done for the people of Maui. And if I'm the one that needs to step up now to do it, then here I am.
Thank you for that heartfelt answer. That was really lovely. Thank you. Lucienne and Rita, I think we have time just for one more question from each of you.
Really? Wow.
Look at the time has flown.
We are styling here. I'm going to jump right into this timely topic. How prepared is Maui County for our next natural disaster, and what more can our government, especially on the county council level, do to improve our preparation and response? I think you've hinted on this a little bit with, evacuation routes, but anything else you'd like to add to that?
Sure. We started on this effort when I was on the council last time of building resilience hubs. And somehow, some of them were actually, we went through the whole process of it. Tina Wildberger was in charge in South Maui, and she did a fantastic job. And then somehow, everybody forgot about it, and they're not active anymore. So we need to resurrect and continue the idea of resilience hubs. We need to advertise more. I mean, there's a lot of talk being and a lot of materials being circulated about what you can do to prepare your property, to prevent fires, to prepare yourself for floods and stuff like that. But we also need to start making these hubs, because it's been proven that that one of the biggest factors of survival is knowing your neighbors and working together as a neighborhood. And that, as soon as I heard that, I got all of our neighbors to, we got a list of everybody's phone numbers and email addresses and what everybody does. And we just started getting to know our neighbors. So that those kinds of things need to be a focal point of what individuals can do as well. But the council can get involved in, I think we need to get involved in MEMA more, the Maui Emergency Management Agency. I got involved in it when I was on the council, and when I talked to the head of that agency, they had like 4 people working in that agency. And I said, well, how many do you really need? And he said, he needs 7 more. So I said, okay, let's put that in the budget. And he said, oh, no, I can't do that. The mayor will get mad at me if I ask for all those people. So we were able to get 4 more positions. I mean, we really need to take a look at that office and make sure everybody in there is qualified. We need to have a stronger relationship. And we had a pretty strong one after the fire, because my husband was with Red Cross. My husband was the chair of the Red Cross Advisory Committee. He has since left, and some of the other people on the Red Cross Advisory Committee left because the National Red Cross came down and told them, you're not supposed to be active in your community. You're just supposed to be fundraisers. So I want to get more involved in those kinds of agencies and making sure that the national organizations know what we're doing here on the ground and will support us better. Um, all of the nonprofits that jump to our aid when the disasters like this happen. I mean, Sierra Club was one of them because when I started asking the shelters, what do you really need? They didn't need any more clothes. They didn't need any more toiletries. They were telling people, stop bringing us your husband's old clothes. I know you want to empty out his closet, but we're okay. And so I went down there in the South Maui one and said, what do people need? And they said, well, we're giving them all these things and they have nothing to carry them around with. So I said, well, she said, what about backpacks? And I went directly to Lucienne and I asked, I know Sierra Club gives backpacks away when you join. Can we get some backpacks? And we got like 144 backpacks from Sierra Club, and they were the high-end ones that you get when
Very
you give
nice.
$1,000. They were the nicest ones. They gave us everything they had. So we need to start recognizing. We need to actually have an inventory of the nonprofits and the things that they can help with, so that we don't have to second guess. One of the things that was, generators. We need to have a list of where the generators are on the island, but things like that we can, I personally know about because we had a generator business, but I'm going to go and make sure that we work a little more directly with MIMA and the nonprofits, and we have these resources identified before something happens.
I'm going to say you should look to our brothers and sisters in Hanatown. They are building a resiliency hub, and it is like
Yes.
well thought out, and it's already being put to use. So
Yeah.
they're
So,
really trying to do that, with county support and with other support, but boots on the ground.
yeah, and we did that in Kihei, and somehow it got put on a shelf like most studies do. And
Yeah.
where is it today? So it needs to be ongoing.
Is that it, Asia, for our time?
Yes,
Or does Rita have time for one more question too?
Rita, would you like to ask a quick question here? You've got 2 minutes.
Okay, if elected, what measurable results should South Maui voters expect by the end of your term?
By the end of my first term, if I get reelected,
Yes, at the
we
end of
should have some more.
your next term, yes.
We should have more affordable housing come online. We should be we should see more of our revenue coming from property taxes from the higher end homes and the homes that are empty half the year, the vacation homes.
Uh-huh.
We should be reprioritizing our resources to, like, water should be reprioritized to agriculture for food, who's growing our food, and to affordable housing. So making a priority list for our resources in this county, that's one of my goals. And we should also expect better accountability and better oversight by the council. And I've already talked to people like Bobby Bahia and other candidates who are just raring to go on these issues. So I feel like there'll be help for for those issues.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that answer. It sounds like you really know what you want to get out of this next term. So best of luck to you.
Well, I am very focused. and
Thank
and
you. And
it's
we
and it's all, go ahead.
well, no, you were very efficient. You nailed that right in time as well.
Well, I draw a lot of my inspiration from the people who are involved in the community. And so, this is not happening in a vacuum. I'm not like developing all these ideas by myself. This is from working with nonprofits, with activists in the community, with state and national organizations, and seeing what's happening in other places. And a lot of people are taking inspiration from what's been happening in Maui County.
Good point.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you, Luciana and Rita, for your thoughtful questions. Kelly, thank you for your very thoughtful and knowledgeable answers. We hope that all of you who've watched this interview will share these interviews with your friends and family, open the conversation, talk with them about how important our county council is and how those laws and bills that they pass, how they affect all of our daily lives. And so it's important that people take the county council races seriously, that they get to know the candidates, and that they think about their own values and what they value for their quality of life living here in Maui Nui, and what is important to them in the short and long term, and how the council can help that happen. So we thank you all for becoming informed Maui voters. Please check out more at mauipononetwork.org, and we'll see you on the next interview.
All right, mahalo nui, and I leave you with this beautiful picture of the wetland from Maui, from South Maui District.
Thank you, Kelly. Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha.